Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 247 DIY. We've got the 2012 Forester back here in the shop. We're going to be jumping into a little bit of a lighting project, which involves switching the daytime running light function, which is the high beams on this model. We're going to be switching that so that the fog lights are the daytime running lights on this. So if that's something you're interested in, stick around. So to start off, you might be asking, why are we even doing this in the first place? Because honestly, why mess with it? It works perfectly fine, the daytime running light function from the factory. Well, the reason is just recently I swapped to LED bulbs in both the low beam and the high beams. And because the high beams on this vehicle are used as both your high beam and your daytime running light, what Subaru does is they run that voltage signal through a resistor, and it drops the voltage down, I believe, to about 8 volts. So you get your high beam bulb at roughly a little more than half voltage, and that gives you a dimmer beam in your headlight housing that's suitable for a daytime running light. When you switch to an LED, and I'm just going to throw this in layman's terms, I'm sure it's a lot more technical than I'm about to explain it, but the LED requires much lower voltage in order to operate at its brightest levels. So to the naked eye, that voltage drop through the resistor for an LED, you don't notice it. So if you were to run LED high beams in this, when you don't have your lights on and your daytime running lights are on, you're effectively driving around with your high beams on all the time, which other drivers are not going to appreciate. So I noticed this after we put the bulbs in and went ahead and disconnected the daytime running light for the time being until I could go ahead and do this project. So right now I actually have no daytime running light, which isn't good for insurance purposes. If they could somehow prove that you didn't have your daytime running lights on and you were to get in an accident, I'm sure that they could try to drop your claim and all of that good stuff. So it's not a good idea to disable those things in terms of insurance. Do your own research, understand all of that. This is, a disclaimer. I'm not telling you, this is a good idea or that you should do this. It's just something that I'm showing you how to do if you're interested in doing it. Make your own decisions if this is something that you want to do. And the whole reason, honestly, that we even went to LED in the first place is I used to use these Philips crystal vision bulbs. They're great. Anybody with this body style Forester, do a little Googling on the internet and you'll see people constantly complaining about, for whatever reason, when Subaru designed these lights, the light output's horrible. So I was going with these crystal vision bulbs for quite a while, but they only last for about 6 months or so, and then you'll get one bulb that burns out. And it does say that on the back of the packaging. It's just because it's a much, brighter bulb and they burn out quicker. But at $40 a pop now is what they're running for. That was just too expensive to keep replacing bulbs every 6 months. So I went with the LED ones. They tend to last a lot longer. I went with the same beam tech bulbs that we used on the WRX over here for the high beam bulbs. Been very happy with it. Just to throw out there real quick, because undoubtedly someone's probably going to put down in the comments, oh, you shouldn't use LED bulbs. It wasn't meant for LED bulbs. Modern LED bulbs, the ones that are coming out now, are perfectly fine to run in vehicles like this. When LED bulbs first came out, yes, they were obnoxious. They weren't meant for this style housing. They would blind other drivers. The more modern LED bulbs you get, they actually do have a cutoff, so you're not blinding other drivers. I've had the low beams as well as the high beams in, but I've had the low beams in for, I think, like 4 months now. I've been meaning to get to this project, and I just haven't gotten around to it. And I can say in that time, I haven't gotten any oncoming traffic flipping their lights at me thinking my high beams are on. So with the Crystal Vision Philips, I used to actually get that every once in a while, and those are just halogen bulbs. So running LED bulbs, not the end of the world. And to be perfectly honest, if you look at a lot of the newer vehicles coming out, specifically the new Silverados, and Subaru is in there too, the new Legacies I noticed, they're super bright and blinding as far as oncoming traffic, and that's factory bulbs. So are you really causing a problem with LED bulbs in there? I don't know. You make your own decisions, but as far as I'm concerned, these aren't distracting. They're not blinding. They're perfectly suited for driving on the road. So that's the whole explanation as to what led up to this project. But let's go ahead and jump in and look what we need to do to make a new harness in order to have these fog lights turn on as our daytime running lights and not our high beams. So the main component that we need to get to is that daytime running light resistor that drops the voltage. And that's located underneath of the passenger side headlight here, underneath the air box. So the first thing we need to do is remove this air scoop and get that out of the way. Next, we're going to disconnect both of our MAF sensor plugs as well as the worm clamp here on the plastic hose. Now you could go ahead and take this all out in one piece. I just find it a little bit easier so you're not wrestling with as much material here, getting this out of here, to do both halves one at a time. And the only bit here that gets in the way as far as getting that out of here is this little wiring connector. But you can just get a pair of needle nose pliers on there, pinch both sides, and it'll pop out of the hole, and then you can get that half right out of there. Then to get this front half out, you've got a 10mm nut here. Now you can do this two ways. On the inside of the plastic here, on the other side of this rubber grommet, there's a 10mm nut there. You can do it, honestly, on either side. I just prefer to use this one right here. And then right down there, it's going to look like you need to undo that, but all it is a little rubber grommet that just pops into there, so you can just force that off the rubber grommet. There's no need to undo the bolt. And then what we're after is the resistor, which is bolted to the back side of this metal here, right here. You can see I've already taped this off. I wanted it waterproof while it was unplugged. And all I did was tape up both sides and then just tape one end of the connector up out of the way here. So we went ahead and removed the tape from this side. We're going to be using this female side of the connector here, but I'm going to leave the actual connector for the resistor taped up because I want to leave this in place should I need to sell this vehicle in the future or trade it in or anything like that. I want everything to work. So we're going to leave the resistor right in place. We're going to tape this up. Now we're going to go over to the workbench and we're going to show you how, in theory at least, I want to wire this up. So this is what we're going to be building our kit from. For the sake of convenience, I jumped on eBay and I just bought a whole new resistor. I could have ran to my local, U-Pick salvage yard and probably saved 10, 15 bucks. But for about $35 on eBay, cost of convenience having it delivered right to my door, we have this, so we can get the male plug off of this and use this. And then I went ahead and I got this, which ended up being a mistake. It wasn't actually what I needed. I hadn't done quite enough research on this whole LED issue. What these kits are for are if your DRLs don't function at all after you install LED bulbs. If the voltage is too low, your LEDs won't turn on at all, and that's what these will help fix. You'll still have full-time high beam in the case of what we're doing here if this were to have sorted out that problem. But Subaru, like I said, I believe uses around 8 volts, which is more than enough to ignite and light up the LEDs. So this isn't what we needed, but we are going to steal some of the connectors off of here. And we'll get to, we've got a new set of bulbs to go in there, and I'll go into more detail because there's a little bit of adapting we're going to have to do to use these bulbs, but I'll get into that in a minute. So the first thing we need to do is we need to know which one of these is the supply voltage, and I'll be honest, I'm going out on a little bit of a limb here. I found a thread on a WRX forum, somebody who did this on their WRX. The reason I'm going out on a little bit of a limb is it uses a different style resistor. The actual body, like this portion here, might be the same, but overall it's a different design. But they did utilize the green wire for their supply, so I'm just going to go out on a limb and hope that the green wire for this is the supply. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work when we're all done and we just have to swap our lines here. So we need to know that this side here is our supply, and that's what we're going to be using for the harness. Now off of here, what we're going to be taking is we need this female plug here that's going to plug into our fog light bulb. Really don't need a lot of wire on there, it should be about enough. And then we need to take one of these male sides as well, like that. So effectively what we're going to do is we're going to create a little bit of a jumper harness here. This will plug into your fog light. This will plug into the factory fog light plug that would normally go to your fog light. And then we'll take the supply line from this and we'll simply jump it to the supply line, the 12 volt supply that would be going to the fog light. Alright guys, so here we are up here in the passenger side. I did remove the passenger side wheel and tire just so I could get this splash guard out of the way for the purpose of filming and getting enough light up in here. You don't have to do that. You just have to get this lower access here and you can reach up in. But the first thing we have to do is put in this new fog light bulb. Now I'm going with a 9005 instead of a 9006. The only difference being a 9006 is typically a low beam brightness, where a 9005 is a high beam brightness. Just due to availability and wanting to stay with the same brand, I couldn't find a 9005 in yellow that I wanted. But because these are yellow, it means the light output is not going to be quite as intense. I think we can get away with a 9005 here as a fog light. I will have to take a look when we're all done and make sure that they're not too bright for oncoming drivers. All it requires is a little bit of a trim up here on the tab. And on this side, we're not going to have to really trim anything because these plugs that came in the kit appear to be more of a universal fit where you can put them on either a 9005 or a 9006. However, when we go to the other side and we want to plug this harness into our bulb, there's little keyways on the inside there. So probably what I'll do is I'll just reach up inside the bulb with a razor blade and I'll cut those little tabs off so that we can slide everything together. So we'll put our fog light in, and then our harness, plug into the fog light. Factory fog light harness will plug in, and the daytime running light connector will plug into that. I'll go ahead and zip tie this up out of the way so it's not quite so floppy. I do have to go to the other side and get that other bulb in on the other side. So let me go ahead and get all this back together. We'll fire it up and we'll see if I did this right. So there we go, we got it. I ended up having a problem. It turns out the plugs I was using had the typical coloring was reversed. Typically in automotive wiring, red is gonna be your hot. If there is no red present, then yes, a lot of times black might be hot. Typically in automotive wiring, black is gonna be a ground. In this case, for whatever reason on these plugs, red was the ground, black was the hot. I had them reversed, and the first time I went to go use the DRL, effectively it sent the voltage improperly through the system and it blew the high beam fuse. It took me a while to figure out exactly what was going on, but once we figured that out, I adjusted the pigtail properly, and as you just saw, everything works good, and we now have fog lights as our daytime running lights. You could also use vampire clips, these little guys. You could clip and just run a single lead from that green wire on the plug to your resistor down to the hot side of the plug for your fog lights. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted this easily reversible. So with this setup, I can just undo the pigtail, replug in the resistor, and have it functioning like normal should I choose to go back to standard high beam bulbs. So that's everything all wrapped up, guys. It's honestly a really easy project. It ended up being a little time consuming and frustrating on my end, but that's my own fault. I didn't double check and recheck wiring to know what was hot compared to the wire coloring of the pigtails that I was using, and I ended up blowing that fuse. So if you're doing this, just make sure to check and recheck, know what wires are hot and what wires are not hot to avoid that problem. And like I said, it is a very easy project that you can do to switch out your high beams as your daytime running light function to your fog lights. That way you can run something such as an LED high beam without blinding oncoming drivers, or just switching up the look of the front end of your vehicle and utilizing your fog lights for your daytime running lights. So as always, guys, if you like the video, be sure to hit that like button. Feel free to leave a comment below if you'd like to add anything. And if you're not subscribed to the channel already, please go ahead and consider subscribing. Thanks.